Om Badram Karnebihi Shruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyema Akshabihi Ryajatraha Sthirairangair Tushtuvam Sastanubihi Veshema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swastinah Indro Vridrashavaha Swastinah Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastinah Taksho Arishtanemi Swastino Brihaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi यो अन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाच इमां प्रक्षुप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वदाम्नान्यांस्तहस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं लसतु श्रीमदानन्दतीर्थेन्दुर्नो हृदम्बरे यद्वचश्चन्द्रिका स्वान्तसन्तापं विनिकृन्तति पदवाक्यप्रमाणज्ञान प्रणम्य शिरसा गुरून् व्याकरिष्ये यथा भूतं विष्णुतत्त्वविनिर्णयम्. So, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to folks who have joined from various parts. So, where are we? We are doing the 29th session. So, I was just looking back, and so Atharvana Upanishad Chintana has been going on for about 10 months. And today is the 29th session, Satsang of Atharvana Upanishad. Hopefully, with God's grace, we'll be able to finish this particular khanda of the second Mundaka, which would mean we have completed 50% of Mundaka Upanishad or Atharvana Upanishad. So, of course, before we get started, we always have to think about our gurus. Yeah. So the Rishi, Atharva, Angirasa, Satyavaha, Angirasa, Shuanaka, and all the acharyas who have given us the exposition of this particular Upanishad. The Devata, of course, is Aksharanamaka Paramatma. Chandas is Anishtub and several others. So this particular Mundaka Khanda of the second Mundaka has got 10 verses. So we have done about 9 verses. Today we got the 10th verse and also the last word of the previous verse. Ataha samudra girayashta sarve asmat sendante sindavaha sarvarupaha atashta sarva oshadayaha rasashta yena esha bhutaihi tishtatehi antaratma. So this particular line, essentially what the Angirasa is telling Shuanaka is, mate, over the last 9 verses, I've described all the great things that the Paramatma does when he creates the universe. Starting from Tadetat Satyam, Yata Sudiptat Pavakat Vishfulingaha, up to Atashta Sarvaha Oshadayoho Rashascha, Yena Esha Bhutaihi Tishtatehi Antaratma. So that is one of the most important philosophy of the Vedas. And the Vedanta is that this Paramatma not only creates, which is a real universe, and he pervades his real universe and maintains it as what? As Antaratma. Okay, so that is what we did about 2 weeks ago, and it's always a good idea to just recapitulate this in some great detail. So what is this Antaratma that is being described here? Yena esha bhutaihi tishtatehi Antaratma. So the Antaryamin or the Antaratma philosophy of the Upanishads is very, very important. And I've reminded you about Antaryami Brahmanam of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which has about 23 verses that talk about this Antaryamitva of Paramatma. Yeah, and our Guru Vedavyasa has actually composed a sutra, Antaryami Eti Daivadishu Tadharma Vyapadesha. Okay, and he has given us the rules of interpretations of the Vedas whenever Prithvi, Apsu, Agnau, Antarikshau, Vayu, Divi, Aditye, Dikshu, Dishe, Akashe, and so on. And then in the middle, there is this beautiful verse that is very much related to Yena Esha Bhutaihi Tishtatehi Antaratma, Ya Sarveshu Bhuteshu Tishtan, Sarvebhyo Bhutebhyo Antara, Ya Sarvani Bhutani Naviduhu, Yasya Sarvani Bhutani Shariram, Yaha Sarvani Bhutani Antaro Yamayati Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha. So that is these 23 verses, they all begin and they all end with this. Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha. Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha is what Yajnavalkya is teaching. So this is a very, very important area. So what does this mean, Atma? So Yeshata Atma Antaryami Amrutaha. Atma, my Swami, master, governor, that person who is pervading all the bhutas. which could be Panchabhutas or all the Jivaganas. He is pervading them inside the Bhutas. Jivaganas is inside them. As what? As Atma, as their master and governor. Antara, he is separate from this Jiva. These words are very, very clear. Yeah, Atma means master and governor. Antara means something that is separate from the Jiva. Yamayati, he governs. Antar, he is independent. Yamin, he is the one who governs. And he is eternal and deathless. That is how the Upanishad celebrates this Antaratma, which is being discussed by Angirasa to Shuanaka about the greatness of this Paramatma. So last time we understood that Aham, that is very popularly quoted in the Upanishads, is the Antaratma in Vedic philosophy. So we looked at a few verses of the Upanishads, such as in Isha Upanishad, Ya asau asau purushaha, so ahamasmi. Purusho drishyate, so ahamasmi. Sava eva ahamasmi. Tasya Upanishad ahariti, tasya Upanishad ahamiti. Sahovacha tvam evam janiyamiti, tam indram uvacha pranova ahamasmi. Brahma, idam brahmasmi. Yeah, so you can see this. Aham Brahmasmi comes in Brihadaranyaka Upanishads. Ahamasmi in so many Upanishads. Aham Brahmasmi in Upanishads. Okay, these are all the various Upanishads. This is a summary of all the Upanishads where this word Aham and Asmi and comes. Isha Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, and of course the most famous verse of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in the first Adhyaya. Antaryami Avyakrita Brahmanam, as it's called. Yeah, Aham Brahmasmi. So there we understood, therefore, Aham is Antaratma of Vedic philosophy. That is where we kind of, finished off last week, but still a few more words need to be said here. We discussed about Aham last week, isn't it? So let's again recapitulate what that Aham is. So the philosophy expands. Aham equals Antaratma equals Antaryami in Vedic philosophy, okay? Everywhere Aham comes, please think about Antaratma. Which is the other name for Antaryamin in Vedic philosophy. And last week we looked at what is the etymology of Aham. Aham cha asau aheyataha. Heya means hatum yogyam heyam. That which can be discarded is called heya. Yeah? Hanyamanatvat ham. That which can be destroyed is ham. Whereas the opposite of it is called aheya. Aheyatva or aham means aheyatvat aham nama. That which cannot be discarded. That which cannot be discarded. That which cannot be destroyed. That which is undiscardable and inside us as our Antaryamin is what aham is. Yeah, aham technically in Vedic etymology means aheyatvat aham nama. Okay? It does not mean I in a very superficial sense, because of this Antaryamin is inside the Jiva and making the Jivas operate. The Jivas have that capacity of aham, I am experiencing, I am doing. So that thing that comes in, that is because the aham namaka Paramatma is inside the Jivas as their undiscardable entity. Our Antaryamin is undiscardable. Aham is the secret and sacred name of Paramatma, as we have seen. Asmi, Sarvada Asti iti Meyam is the etymology of Asmi. He always knows, or he is always conscious of his eternal existence and perfection. So that is what Aham means, Aheyatvat. Asmi means Sarvata Asti Medam. Brahma means I am an abode of infinite auspicious attributes. Brahma, what is Brahman? Brahman means Brihanto hi asmin gunaha. That is what is the etymology of Brahman. Okay, so we need to watch the language of Vedic Sanskrit very carefully before jumping into superficial conclusions, which is famously done for this particular Upanishad called Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where 3 times Aham Brahmasmi comes in. And then we also looked at it last week as to how some folks have plucked these 3 words, the Aham Brahmasmi, and then said, I am Brahman. Guys, we are all God. Aham Brahmasmi. Why? Look, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is stating that. Okay, so that is one view of certain schools of Vedanta. Whereas primarily, Aham means, I've told you what the etymology of is. Brahman, I've told you what the etymology of this is. Asmi, I've told you what is the etymology of Brahman. So the Aham, Aheya of Judaism is the same. I am that I am, says Paramatma to Moses in the Torah text, Old Testament. Asmi in the Zoroastrian text of Zenda Avesta, where Ahura Mazda has a conversation. Yeah, the Zarathustra has, that is their guru has a conversation with Ahura Mazda, the Paramatma of the Zoroastrianism, where he says, that is Ahura Mazda says, Ahmi is my name, Ahmi. So in the Persian language, wherever H is, wherever in Sanskrit there is S, you will see that it is replaced by H. And that is why we are called Hindu religion, right? Because we are on the other side of Sindhu. And in the Persian language, S is not there, so Hindu. That is how this came about. Similarly, in the Persian language, Ahmi is the name of Paramatma. That is what Ahura Mazda says to Zarathustra, saying, Ahmi is my name. It is my most sacred and secret name, says Ahura Mazda to Zarathustra. Similarly, Paramatma says to Moses, Aheya is my name, Eher, Esher, Ehe in Hebrew, which is Aham, Aheya. So we need to look at the world philosophies rather than coming to superficial conclusions of what Aham Brahmasmi is. So Aham is Antaratma equals Antaryamin in Vedic philosophy. That is the true meaning of Aham. Okay. So here is another summary slide of, but some folks say, no, the Upanishads say about Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Okay. So we just need to finish this over the next 5 minutes to give you a contextual relevance. And I told you last time, we always need to look at the contextual relevance of where these words are coming. So what I've done is, for our benefit and for our chintana in this satsang, I've taken the whole paragraph of that particular section of Avyakruta Brahmanam of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and also a couple of previous verses. Okay, some folks conveniently, they try to avoid this, conveniently hide this, and not discuss this with folks when they talk about what Aham Brahmasmi is. But here is a beautiful statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in the previous two verses. Tadetat preyaha, puttat preyaha, vittat preyoho, asmat, sarvasmat, antarataram, yadayam atma. So this antaratara, which is also called atma, is the closest. Puttat preyo, vittat preyo. He is closer than your children. He is closer than your wife. He is closer than all the wealth that you have. Sarvasmat antarataram. He is inside everybody as their governor. Says the Avyakrita Brahmanam just the two verses before. Then the discussion, of course, is Tadahuhur yad brahma vidyaya sarvam bhavishyanto manushya manyante kimutad brahma avet yasmat tat sarvam abhavat iti. Given that the self-fulfillment is attained by knowing Brahman through Brahma Vidya, men would like to attain self-fulfillment as themselves. So what is it that Brahman itself came to know, whereby it became perfect and self-fulfilled, is the question there. Tad ahuhur brahma vidyaya sarvam bhavisyantaha manushya manyante kimu tad brahma avet tasma yasmat tat sarvam abhavat iti. Okay, careful, easy. I mean, there are no confusions here. That is the question. That is the context in which this discussion is happening. Men who would like to attain self-fulfillment ask, what is it that Brahman itself came to know, whereby it has become perfect and self-fulfilled? Immediately the Rishi answers, Brahmava idamagra asid tadatmanam eva avet aham brahmasmiti tasmat tat sarvam abhavat. Brahman, who was the only being who existed before creation, Brahmava idamagra asid. That Brahma there is not Chaturmukha Brahma, as some schools make us believe. Chaturmukha Brahma has still not come into existence in this verse. Here, Brahma means Brahman. Brahmava idamagra asid. In the Upanishad, everywhere, Atmava idamagra asid. So that is what it means. Atma, Brahma, they're all the same. So before creation, Brahman alone existed. And when he existed before creation, he alone existed. And he was always aware of his eternal existence and undiscardability and perfection. So that is the meaning of that sentence. Brahmava idamagra ase tadatmanam eva avet Aham Brahmasmi. Brahman existed before creation, and he always knew that he was Aheya, he is Sarvaguna Purna, and he is Sarvada Asti Iti Meyam. Because the previous question was that, isn't it? What is it that Brahman did? Did he go to a university or a school and attained a perfection? So the Rishi is answering, no, mate. Brahman always existed even before creation, and he always knew that he was Aham Brahmasmi, that he is Aheya, he is an abode of infinite auspicious attributes, and he always knew that he is eternally full of infinite auspicious attributes. Okay? This becomes problematic for our Mayavada philosophers because they have termed this something called Nirguna Brahman. But this is the problem. Nirguna Brahman cannot know it exists. And there is a philosophical problem called Kartru Karma Viroda. So for those of us who are interested in these technical polemics, this is very easy. Here, there is nothing called Nirguna Brahmava Idamagra Asid. It said Brahmava Idamagra Asid. Tad Atmanam Eva Abed. He knew Nirguna Brahman cannot know he exists because he is Nirguna. Kartir karma viroda, as an object cannot be the subject of its own knowledge, is the meaning there. So this becomes problematic for our Mayavada philosophers. I hope you find this interesting because the wording is very clear. Brahman always existed. Tad yo devanam pratyabhudyata sa eva tadabhavat. Tata rishinam tata manushyanam. Whoever among devatas awoke to the knowledge that Brahman is ever present. He is my Aham and Antaryaman. He is ever full. He became full. That Devata became full as per his capacity when he knew Brahman as Aham Antaryami. So also among the rishis and among men who attain fulfillment of their nature. That Sarvam Abhavat there means fulfillment of their nature. That is self-realization. Okay? That is the meaning there. Tad yo devanam pradyabhudyata sa eva tadabhavat tata rishinam tata manushyanam. Okay. Next is a beautiful one. The Rishi then says, I will give you an example. Tadetat pashyan rishihi vamadevaha pratibete aham manuhu abhavam suryascha iti. So the Rishi in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad gives an example of a great Rishi called Vamadeva. Okay? And he says, look, this is exactly like what happened to Rishi Vamadeva. Vamadeva in the past understood Brahman as Aham in Manu and Sun. Okay, so here I have a very quick question. So Vamadeva, it's a tough one, but I'll ask it anyway. So which mandala of the Rig Veda is dedicated to Vamadeva? He is an amazing, great Rishi. In fact, one of the mandala of Rig Veda itself is dedicated to Vamadeva. Anybody wants to come in here and give us what is the greatness of Vamadeva? No problem. So the fourth mandala of the Rig Veda is called Vamadeva Mandala. So this Vamadeva has intuited so many mantras of the Rig Veda, and the whole mandala is dedicated to him. So Brihadaranyaka Upanishad of Shukla Yajurveda cites him and says, there is an example there. What I'm saying is not theory or story, but actually it has happened. Check out the fourth mandala of the Rig Veda. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Rishihi Vamadeva in the past understood Brahman as Aham in Manu and Sun. And that is what Veda Vyasa does in Antaryami Pranadikaranam of Vedanta Sutra. So go and check that sutra out. And as you know, whenever we do Upanishad, we have to bring Gita and the Sutra together as Prasthana Trayas. So Veda Vyasa has dealt with this very beautifully in this particular important adhikaranam called Antaryami Pranadikaranam. So that is the master stroke of Veda Vyasa of the Sarva Shabda Vachatya of Brahman. All the words denote Brahman. Why? Because of the Antaryami Pranadikaranam, where he gives the same example. Shastra Drushyatu Upadesho Vamadevavate. Why? I have cited this Vamadeva Mandala here for our benefit. Aham Manuhu, Abhavam Suryashcha, Aham Kakshivan, Aham Krishnam. He goes on, Aham this, Aham this, Aham this. That is how Vamadeva intuited. What is that? He did not say, I am Manu means Vamadeva did not say, I am Manu. Vamadeva did not say, I am Surya. No, Vamadeva knew that the Aham Antaryamin is in Manu. The Aham Antaryamin is in Surya. The Aham Antaryamin is in Kakshivan. That is how he contemplated on this Aham Namaka Paramatma and he attained his self-realization. So that is the context there. Okay. So again, this is why we need to read the Upanishads carefully rather than plucking the words and making an airy-fairy philosophy around this. Look at the next word. So that is what I said. Tade tat pashyan rishihi vamadevaha pratipede aham manuhu abhavam suryascha iti. Aham manuhu abhavam suryascha aham kakshivan. That is what is Rigveda mandala which is being cited by Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Tadidam api yetarihi evam veda aham brahma asmi iti sa idam sarvam bhavati. Even now, look at that very beautifully. Tat idam api etarhi. Even now, whoever knows Brahman as ever present aham antaryamin, ever full, will become full as per his or her capacity. So when the Upanishad said, even now means it is you and me in this satsang. Even now, you and me, if we understand this aham as antaryamin, Brahman as abode of infinite auspicious attributes, Asmi as somebody who is always knew that, and he adores this Paramatma who is inside him, if he does that contemplation, then he has a chance of his self-realization. Okay? Now, the reason why I'm putting all this is exactly the sequence of thought of Angirasa, as you will very shortly see in the very next verse. And that is why I had to bring this in, that Angirasa says the same thing. Okay? And then, of course, there is a censuring that happens. Na devan shcha anubhutya ishata atma hi esha samabhavati atayeo anyam devatam upaste anyoso anyo ahamasmi iti nasaveda yata pashuhu. Those knowing anything else apart from Brahman as perfect, undiscardable, are like animals. Shuns the Upanishad. Brahman alone is aham. Brahman alone is infinite auspicious attributes. Brahman alone is ever existent and knew himself as undiscardable and full of infinite auspicious attributes. He who thinks anything apart from Brahman is that is doomed, and he is Pashuhu. Pashuhu means he will come again and again in samsara. Okay, so these words are very clear from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that I really do not know, and I'm baffled as how some Mayavada philosophers can actually pluck these words and say, I am Brahman, I am Brahman. No, he is very clearly said, Yo anyam devatam upaste anyoso anyo ahamasmi iti nasavedayata pashuhu. Okay, knowing Brahman as ever present, perfect, defectless, undiscardable, and as always aware of his perfection is critical for our salvation. So unless we get this in our head that we are the jivas, inside us is our antaryamin. This antaryamin is called aham brahma and asmi in the Upanishads, in the Rig Veda. Vamadeva saw it like that and he attained his salvation. If Vamadeva can do it, maybe we can also do it. That is the philosophy there about yena esha bhutaihi tishtatehi antaratma. So I hope that made sense, because next we are going to the last verse of today's class and also the first kanda. Immediately, Angirasa, after declaring that Brahman is the creator of the universe, he celebrates him. Purusha eva idam. Purusha eva idam vishwam karma tapo brahma paramrutam. Yetad yo veda nihitam guhayam. So avidya grantim vikirati iha somya. Okay? The language is very similar to what I have just told you in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Avyakruta Brahman. Okay? Remember this, yad yo veda nihitam guhayam. Okay? I'll come back to it in a minute. So Purusha. We are all very familiar with Purusha because Purusha is described in, of course, Purushottama Yoga, Purusha of the Purusha Shukta. We have done all these. And of course, Narayana Upanishad says, who is this Purusha? Om ata Purusho havai Narayano akamayat praja srujeyeti. This Purusha is Narayana. And he desired and he created, brought all these prajas into creation. Okay? Ata Purushoha vai Narayano akamayata prajaha srujayeti. And there are so many etymological meanings of Purusha. So go back to Purushottama Yoga and Purusha Shukta to check this out. But I just want to pick up one. So what are the etymology? Purvameva aham, pura asa, purishete, purusaha, purusyati, purusanoti, purusha comes in Brihati Sahasra of Rigveda. Purusha vidatvat purushaha, purna shadgunatvat purushaha. And in this, I've just picked up one Purishete iti Purushaha. So anybody wants to tell us what that Purishete actually means? So what is Purishete in that etymology of Purusha means in Anand, go for it.
Purishete means lives in a place, lives all over, omnipresent.
Yeah, so that is one. Thank you, Anandji. Anybody else wants to come in here? Okay, no worries. So Puri means a place. Shete means exist. So this Jiva is a Puri. Shete exists inside the Jiva. Okay, that is Antar Bahishcha Tat Sarvam Vyapya Narayana Stitaha is where Anandji is coming from. Antar, that Antar that is there, right? That is called Puri Shete. Puri, this Puri, this place called the Jiva. Inside him is this fellow. That is why, that is one of the etymology of Purusha. And the reason why this become interesting is we need to look at the context, right? The context here is Antara Atma. Yeah. Yena esha tishtatehi antaratma. That antaratma is Purusha because Purishete, and of course all other contemplations of why that verse Purusha is there is useful for us when we do this contemplation on the Upanishad. Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapo brahma paramrutam says Angirasa. This Purusha is that. Okay, so let's look at this verse very carefully because it's quite a fascinating piece of philosophy there that's going on. Okay, so Purusha eva idang vishwam karma. So you need to look at this word called the Vishwam karma. So what is that Vishwam karma actually means? Vishwam means what? Vishwam karma means creation, the action of creating the universe. Yeah, this Vishwam karma, this whole creation that is the big action that he has done. Okay, Vishwam karma. Again, watch the language. Paramatma is doing some karma here. Vishwam karma, he's doing actions. Okay. But in Nirguna Brahman, he is actionless. He doesn't do anything. He is inert. That is not what Angirasa is saying. This Brahman, who is called Purusha, he is Vishwam Karma. He is doing everything. That Vishwam Karma is not superimposition. It is not an illusionary projection. He's saying Vishwam Karma. Okay. Purusha eva idang Vishwam Karma yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisam vishanti tad vijijnasasva tad brahmeti says Taittiriya Upanishad. Okay, we have done this Isha Upanishad, which I want to remind you all about this Vishwam Karma that Paramatma does. Kavir, Manishihi, Paribuhu, Swayambhuhu, Yata Tatyato Artan, Vedatat, Shashwatibhyaha, Samabhyaha. Yata Tatyato Artan. Okay, this word, Yata Tatyato, Yatartha, this is real, says Isha Upanishad, where Swayambhu Manu and Yajnanamaka Paramatma, the discussion is going on, and Swayambhu Manu is saying, you are creating a real universe that I am looking after. He is saying Swayambhu Manu to Yajnanamaka Paramatma. Yata Tatyato Artan. I just baffles me as to how some people can think this universe is an illusion. When you look at these clear words of the Upanishad, we can think whatever we want. But if one wants to bring evidence of the Vedas with regards to what their hypothesis is, 100% the Vedas do not confer with that or concur with that theory of illusoriness of the universe. Yata tatyato artan. That Vishwam karma. Okay. So that Vishwam karma is what? Next word, next line. This Vishwam karma does this with what? Tapa. Yad yo veda nihitam. Hang on, I'm having hang on. So, Purusha eva idang Vishwam karma and tapa. So there are two ideas here for us to think about. Yeah. Vishwam karma and tapa. Okay. So what does that tapa mean? Again, watch those language, very clear. Yeah. We have done this Mundaka Upanishad. Tapasachiyate Brahma tato annam abhijayate annat prano manaha satyam lokaha karma sucha amrutam. Here is a very tricky problem for our Mayavada philosophers. Satyam lokaha. This damn world in front of you is Satyam. And how was this created? Tapasachiyate Brahma. Brahman thought, and then the universe came into existence. What is that Brahma's thought means? Tapa alochane. And we have done that in that time where for us, when we think about something, there is always a component of ignorance. Only when we have some ignorance, then we think, oh, what am I going to have for dinner today? And we think, because we don't know what we're going to have for dinner. So we think there is an element of ignorance. Whereas here, Angirasa has said in this particular verse, the tapa alochane is full of jnana, is full of infinite knowledge. This Brahman has got infinite knowledge, and when he thinks, he reminds us his thinking is different from your thinking. His thinking is full of infinite knowledge. Our thinking has got always ignorance in it. So tapasa chiyate Brahma of Mundaka Upanishad is exactly the same here. Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapo. Okay? Look at Taittiriya Upanishad. We have done this a million times. So akamayatu bahusyam prajaye iti saha tapo atapyata sa tapas taptva idam sarvam asrijata. The tapa there means tapa alochane, full of jnana, jnanamaya, infinite knowledge, omniscience. And the Upanishad clearly has said it's a voluntary contemplation. He thinking is a voluntary contemplation, deep thought, a well-planned activity. Okay, creatorship of Brahman is a voluntary activity. In contrast, illusory projection is always unpremeditated and involuntary. Okay? Nobody goes and said, let me have an illusion. Let me think and have an illusion. No, it is not. It is illogical. Voluntary experience can never be an illusion. Illusion is always an involuntary. So these are all key ideas that we should never forget to think about this when we do this Upanishad, because the tapaha there is very clear. Angirasa's illustration and statement does not support the cosmic illusion theory when you read the Upanishads. We can have a hypothesis, but the Vedas do not say that. Okay, we should not have a hypothesis and read the Vedas and fit our hypothesis in it. Okay? That is not acceptable. We need to read the Vedas as they are and assimilate what the knowledge that it is giving. So that is what our rishis have told us. Okay? But here in certain schools, it seems to be the reverse, which is quite interesting. So tapa alochane means jnana. So here you have Vishwam karma and you have tapa. So Vishwam karma is the actions, all the actions that Brahman does, and all the infinite omniscience that he has, tapa. So this is Vishwam karma is omnipotency, really, isn't it? If somebody is a creator, it tells us that his jnana should be infinite and his kriya shakti should be infinite. He must be omniscient, he must be omnipotent, and all that we get those ideas when we think about Vishwam karma and tapa. Okay? So we need to build this layers of ideas in this particular verse. So when the Upanishad says Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapo, so we need to have anvaya of that and see what is going on here. So idam vishwam karma tapa, idam vishwam karma vishwa and tapa. So in this Brahman, this creative activity and his knowledge, Purusha eva. So this is the interesting part of it. Purusha eva idam vishwam karma tapo. That means that Brahman's knowledge and Brahman's activity is the same. Purusha eva vishwam karma and tapo. That is how you read this verse. So how does it look like? So jnana, ichcha and kriya are the three components, right? We have done this before. For anything to be created, if you want to bake a cake, you need to have the knowledge of how to bake a cake. You need to have a desire of how to make a cake. Then you need to do it, right? Mix the dough and all the other things you need to do. Kriya. So jnana, ichcha and kriya, number one, are only in sentient entities. Okay? A stone does not have jnana, ichcha and kriya. It might have some kriya of rolling down the slope and so on, but that is not a self-initiated rolling down. Yeah, only sentient things have jnana, ichcha and kriya. So this jnana is tapa here. And kriya is vishwam karma. So how to contemplate that creative activity of Brahman is the key philosophy here. And our Rishi says you need to understand this very, very carefully. Okay? Why? Because they are the same. Purusha eva. So last week when we had the chapter 4 Chintana, this kind of discussion came about quite a lot, where the jnana, ichcha and kriya shakti of Paramatma is one and the same. Okay? And when we think about the second sutra that gives the definition of Brahman as Janmadhyasya Yataha, and that creatorship, we think about Jnana, Ichcha, and Kriya, then we understand that is Purusha Eva, that is Brahman himself, who is Jnana, Ichcha, and Kriya. So this is a very subtle concept, but that is the key principle of Vedic philosophy. Very different from ours. Okay, so ours is a kind of different, isn't it? Why is it different? We have discussed this potter. If you're a potter, your body, you use your external body and you do various things. Your body is different, you are different. Okay, and you have the mind, the material mind. You use the material mind and you plan something. You use your material brain and you retrieve your memory and you do something. So you are always using something external to you when you are doing material transaction. Whereas Brahman is different. Okay. So what is that Brahman? What is that so interesting about this Brahma that we need to have a conversation here? This takes you to a very, very interesting Vedic philosophy. And again, I want to illustrate how our Vedic rishis and philosophies have actually worked it out in great details thousands and thousands of years ago and eternally. There may be some modern Western philosophers like Hegelian doctrine of internal relations. Hegel was a philosopher, Western philosopher in the 18th century. He came up with this discussion. Whereas our Vedic philosophy had this, 10,000 years ago, eons ago. What is that philosophy? The philosophy of understanding the relationship between substance and attributes. Substance is what? You and me are substance. Paramatma is also substance. Rain is substance. TV is substance. There are so many things that are substance. Substances can be material or non-material. And all substances have attributes. Period. Some folks think there could be some entity without attributes. It is their problem. Every substance has an attribute in all of existence. So what is the relationship between such substances and their attributes? It's an important philosophical discussion. Okay, we don't think about it. We pick up an apple or a mango and we eat it. But there is a big philosophy around the apple and the mango, and I'll come to it in a minute. So there is the substance. You have a substance and it has got some qualities, right? So the philosophers are asking, what is the relationship between the substance and the attributes? Are they the same, which is a view of Mayavada? Or do they have an external relationship, which is the view of the Nyaya and the Vaisheshika schools? Or are they partly identical, partly different, that is the Bhattan Nyaya school? Or are do the substance themselves have a self-differentiating capacity, which is called Visheshas? Okay. So, and I've sort of marked it up in red, which is the view of the realistic schools of philosophies, which is very similar. In fact, it is ditto Hegelian doctrine of internal relation. That is what Hegel discussed about when he spoke about substance and attributes. I would argue comes directly from the Vedic philosophy. So what does that mean? So let us take a mango. Okay, you have a green mango. 10 days ago, it was green in color, but you have mango with mango-ness. Yeah, you say something as mango, but not an apple because it has got an attribute. It has got some qualities that defines it as a mango. Okay, so those qualities of mango that are co-equal to the mango itself. Okay, that is called Yavad Dravyabhavi in Vedic philosophical language. But for example, now, if, for example, the green mango then becomes a yellow mango, okay, the skin color changes from green to yellow. So that is some attribute that is changing, that is non-eternal. So that is called non-co-eval attributes. That is called Ayavad Dravya Bhavi. Okay, so our Vedic philosophers would say, so there's some for eternal substances, when they have an attribute, the attribute and the substance are one and the same, and the attributes manifest itself through the self-differentiating capacity of the substance itself. And our Srimad Acharya, one of the greatest contributions in philosophy was to discuss this concept called Viseshas. And he says, this is Savishesha Veda. That is, there is no difference for eternal substances and their attributes, but for non-eternal substances, they are different come identical. So I hope this is important. This is an important concept, and it is a difficult concept that we need to keep thinking about this over months and years. And then once it clicks, it clicks. Yeah, this concept of Yavad Dravya Bhavi and Ayavad Dravya Bhavi. And why am I saying this? Paramatma is a sentient substance. He is an eternal substance. He has attributes. And his attributes and himself, that relationship is Yavadravya Bhavi, Sab Vishesha Beda, non-different. Is Vyuha, Avatara, Amsa, Avesha, Vibhuti, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, you name your Antaratma, they are all one and the same. Okay, so that is the idea there about Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapa. So, idam vishwam karma tapa Purusha eva. It is Brahman himself. Why? Because of this idea. So, unless we understand this, it becomes different. So, Purusha eva idang vishwam karma. The relationship between Purusha and his jnana, action, and infinite attributes. What is that? Here is a beautiful prasthana trayi in action for our chintana. Purusha and his actions are non-different. Purusha and his knowledge are non-different. Purusha and his non-material infinite qualities are non-different. Okay? So to address this very critical issue, Brahma or Vedavyasa composed something called Ahikundalavatvadikaranam. So go and check that out. Ahikundalavatvadikaranam. Vedavyasa did this in the third adhyaya, Sadhana adhyaya. Ahikundala means a serpent with a coil. He gives the example to talk about this. Beautiful. So when you have a serpent in the coil, you can say serpent coil or serpent's coil, but they are the same. It is a serpent. It can be linear, it can be coil. It is the same serpent, but we say serpent coil or serpent's coil. Sun is the abode of light as well as light itself. Time, Purvavadva. So Ubaya Vyapadeshattu Ahikundalavat, Prakashavatshavatva, Tejasvat, Purvavadva. The same time, thou being non-different from prior time or future time, is discriminated as prior time. Okay, think about this. Time, sun, coiled snake. That should give you an idea of this. And then Vedavyasa then finishes off with a very important sutra called Pratishedacha. So what is that Pratishedacha? Vedavyasa cites a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad there. Manasaiva idam anudrashtavyam nehananasti kinchana mrutyos mrutyum apnoti ya iha naneva pashyati. Okay? Manasaiva anudrashtavyam nehananasti kinchana. Again, our friends in the illusory schools of Vedanta, they have interpreted this differently, but this is in context. Manasaiva anudrashtavyam nehananasti kinchana. Katha Upanishad also says the same thing. Manasaiva idam aptavyam nehananasti kinchana mrutyosa mrutyam gacchati ya iha naneva pashyati. What is that? He who thinks Purusha and his actions are different. He who thinks Purusha and his knowledge are different. He who thinks Purusha and his non-material infinite qualities are different is doomed. He goes to mrutyosa mrutyam gacchati. Okay, so this is what we did last time in Gita, isn't it? 4.9. So can we get one of us to recite Gita verse, please? 4.9. Who wants to go for it? Pragnesh Bhatt.
Thank you. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna.
Beautiful, Pragneshji. Thank you very much. That is in contrast to what Brihadaranyaka says. He who thinks it's different is doomed. Because manasaiva anudrashtavyam nehananasti kinchana. That is exactly what Krishna says. Janma karma cha me divyam. It is divine. It is transcendental. Why? Because I am the same. Unlike you. Okay? Unlike you, Arjuna, who is in the material world with a material body, using all things external and trying to wage this war and also in doom and gloom. I am different. My janma is different. My karma is different. That is, Vishwam karma is different and my knowledge is different, says the Mundaka Upanishad. So when you put this all in action, put the Prasthana Trayas, the ideas are extremely, extremely easy for us to grasp. Okay. So then he says Brahma. Okay. That we are all world's expert on Brahman, right? Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapa. So, but who is he? He qualifies that he is Brahman. He is Brahma. What does Brahma means? Atakasmad uchyate brahmeti bruhanto hi asmin gunaha is the etymology. Brahman means he who is an abode of infinite auspicious qualities. He who is all pervasive. Brahman means bruhat, big. Big means what? All pervasive in time, space, and attributes. Okay, so this is important. If you put Nirguna Brahman, Brahman is full of attributes. Nirguna is contradictory. So the way to read that is This Brahman is an abode of infinite, non-material, auspicious attributes. That is the meaning of nirguna there. Doesn't mean he's attributeless. It just means he doesn't have any of the gunas of the material world, because material world has got gunas, 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. He is in an entirely different category. Brahma Shabdashta Vishnaveva, Srimad Acharya's declaration in the very first sutra. Brahman equals Purusha equals Narayana equals Vishnu. They all mean the same. All pervasive. Yeah, when you look at the etymology, they are all the same. It is not a sectarian view. It is an etymological view of what Purusha means, what Narayana means, what Vishnu means. Vishnu means Vishal Vyapta, wish to pervade. Brahman, big to pervade. Okay. So, Athato Brahma Jignasa, that is why Veda Vyasa put this Brahman there in the very best beginning, which is what our Angirasa is saying. Purusha eva idang vishwam karma tapo Brahma. Okay. Tannor Vishnu Prachodayat, says Taittiriya Upanishad, when it gives a definition of who this Brahman is. Go and check that out. There are people who are even confused to understand who this Brahman means. Brahman is not Chaturmukha Brahma. Brahman means Vishnu. And there is a whole lot of evidence in the scriptures. And I've just given you one in the Taittiriya Aranyaka, which is also called Mahanarayana Upanishad. Okay. So Angirasa's stream of thought is very, very clear. Let's finish this verse over the next 10 minutes. Purusha eva idam vishwam karma tapo brahma. And he says, who is this guy? Paramrutam. He is para. Para means what? Vara. Vara means highest. Amrutam. Amrutam. Mruta means that which dies. Amruta means that which is deathless, that which is eternal. Okay. He is Paramrutam. So there are a lot of eternals in Vedic philosophy, and he's higher than all the eternals. So here I have a question for our own Chintana. What are the eternals in Vedic philosophy? There are lots of eternal entities in Vedic philosophy, right? So who wants to give us a view on that? What are the various eternal entities that we know of?
Dravyam karma
Lakshmi,
chakalascha.
Vishnu. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We got lots of contributions. So let's do Sudarshan first and then come to Suresh ji, and then I don't know who the third one was. Sudarshan, go for it.
Lakshmi.
Okay, very good. Eternal, fantastic. Suresh ji?
I was just talking about Dravyam karma chakalascha swabhavo jiva evacha. So all those entities there are eternal.
Beautiful.
Matter.
Suresh ji, Shrikant ji?
Agamas and Lakshmi.
So Agamas, Lakshmi, yeah, beautiful. So yeah, we got most, all of us got everything right here. So when eternals come about, as Suresh ji mentioned, don't forget 2, 10, 12. We were discussing this morning as well, in some other forum. Dravyam karmashta kalashta swabhavo jiva evacha yad anugrahata santi nasanti edupekshaya, Suresh ji recited. So the first line gives all the eternals. Yeah. So you have the jivas, you and me are eternal. Yeah, let's not forget. Krishna is eternal. You and me are eternal. Lakshmi is eternal, as Sudarshan ji mentioned. Varanas are eternal. Vedas are eternal. Kala is eternal. Avyakrita Akasha is eternal. So there are so many of these things that are eternals. Whereas in Katha Upanishad, Yama said, Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman tam atmastam ye anupashyanti dhiraha Tesham Shantihi Shashvatihi Na Itaresham. Okay? Nityo Nityanam there means there is a difference. What is the difference between the eternality of ourselves as Jivas and Brahman's eternality? Who wants to come there? What is the difference between our eternality and Brahman's eternality? Anybody wants to contribute? Suresh.
Our eternality is dependent on Vishnu, but he is an independent eternal entity.
Beautiful, Suresh ji. Thank you very much. Anybody else wants to contribute here? Okay, beautiful. That's what Acharya said in Tattva Sankhyanā. Swatantram aswatantram cha dvividam tattvam ishyate. Okay, the aswatantras are what? Matter and jivas. Swatantro Bhagavan Vishnuhu. There is only one independent stuff. Jayatirtha then gives a definition. What does that independence actually means? When you say independent being, what is the meaning of independence? Swarupa, Pramiti, Pravriti, Lakshana, Satta, Traividye, Para Anapeksham Swatantram. Tad Apeksham Aswatantram. That means for your existence, for your knowledge and ability to action, for your ability to action and your volition, that entity which is not dependent on anything else is called an independent entity, whereas anything else that is dependent on something for its existence, for its volition, for its objecthood of knowledge is called aswatantram. That is the primary definition of what dependence means and what independence means. I would urge that we memorize this verse of Jayatirtha, which is such a foundational definition of what is independent, what is dependent. So God's essential nature is power of knowing, becoming known, and power to act, not depend on any other agency. Whereas for us, we are dependent on this Paramatma for all these three things. He who realizes this then becomes a Karma Yogin, and then he follows a particular direction for his salvation. But none of us do it because we think we are the owners of everything. Okay, so that is very important. When it says Paramrutam, that gives you the foundation of the whole philosophy of the Gita there, right? So look at the next verse. Paramrutam, we have done this verse. Now, this is important. The reason why I had to bring the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad right at the beginning to talk about this Aham, the Antaryamin, he who is inside you, is because of this line. And this is very important when Angirasa is telling us, we have to clearly listen to it. If we are serious practitioners of Vedic philosophy, Angirasa says, Yad Yetad Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Saha Avidya Grantim Vikirati Iha Somya. Yetad. That entity that is doing all these big things in this universe, that entity who is omniscient, omnipotent, and all pervasive, etc., that I've just discussed in the previous line, that fellow is very close to you. Yeah. Yetat, we have done this before. Yetat means that which is very close to you, that which is actually inside you as your antaratma, which he has said in the previous verse. Yetad yo Veda. He who knows this. Okay? Knows this means what? Not just, oh, now we have learnt it because the Angirasa has said this, so we now know it. No, that is not enough. Veda means Vedana Sakshatkara, Aparoksha Jnana. That is, he who actually sees this fellow who is inside him as his Antaryamin. He who has an Aparoksha Jnana. He who actually sees his Antaryamin. Where is this Antaryamin? Nihitam Guhayam. He is inside you in your Guha. Nihitam Guha. And we have done this before. Where is that, where is that Paramatma? We understood there is this something in the middle portion of the heart, some organ called the thymus, and there is a cave which is called the Guha. And in that cave is the Jiva, and inside him is Prana, and inside him is the Paramatma, is the view there. So the Paramatma is Nihitam Guhayam. He who is inside the Guha, which is what all the other Upanishads say, yeah? Katha Upanishad, Guham Pravishtav Parame Pararde. Ritam Pibandav Sukrutasya Loke, Guham Pravishtav Parame Pararte. The same Katha Upanishad is Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan, Na Atma Asya Jantor Nihito Guhayam. Exactly the same. Nihitam Guhayam, Nihitam Guhayam. Yeah. Yo Veda Nihitam Gurayam Parame Vyoman, Taittiriya Upanishad. Brahma Vedapnoti Param Tadesha Abhyukta Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam Parame Vyoman. Vyoma there means space, Parama space, which is ultimate space, Guhayam, in that cave, he is there. So if you look at the language of Mundaka, Nihitam Guhayam, Guhayam Pravishtav, Nihitam Guhayam is what our Upanishads keep saying. Yet what we do? We hang around, we go out, we go to various places of inverted commas of worship, and we do all sorts of superficial, this archana, this puja, that puja, and then we come back and say, look, I'm now going to get salvation. That is a good act. That is a good karma that you are doing, but the Vedas are very clear. That is not going to take you to salvation. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam, Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. We should never ever forget this. Search for God inside you, not outside. Unless He is inside you, unless you know He is inside you, you will never find Him outside. That is what our gurus teach us. Yeah, it's a very, 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 very important concept of understanding that there is this jiva and there is this antaryamin, and this antaryamin is inside. He who knows this antaryamin, Veda, Vedana, Aparoksha Jnana, he who knows him, Shakshatkara, sees him, only for him, what happens to him? So, avidya grantim vikirati. Watch the language again. So is so important. Okay, that he says only for the folks who Veda Nihitam Guhayam, only for those guys. Avidya Grantim, for eternity, we have had this Linga Sharira which is full of ignorance, karmic imprints, ignorance. We have got all that. When is our karma going to go? Our karma is a direct consequence of all the ignorance that we have. What are all our ignorance? Ignorance of not only ourselves, ignorance of this Paramatma who is inside us, ignorance of our relationship between us and him, ignorance of the fact that we think we are independent actors and we own everything outside us. There are all the Jivachadika, Paramachadika and all that. Those are all the ignorance. Okay, and the consequence of that is the endless karmic imprints that we've got. How on earth are we going to get rid of it? Angirasa says, Etad yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. When this jiva sees this fellow inside, Aparoksha Jnana, which is what the Phala Adhyaya, the fourth Adhyaya of Brahma Sutra is all about. Okay, only at that position, you have Karma Kshaya. Yeah, and Gita's verses there is in Jnana Agnihi Bhasmasat Kurute. Yeah, so that Jnana Agni, that is Jnana, there is Aparoksha Jnana. That Aparoksha Jnana Agni is what Angirasa is talking about. Yetad yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. At that point, Shuanaka, then you will, this avidya knot is there, no, this horrible, horrible knot that we cannot take it ourselves. Somebody else has to take it for us. That somebody else is the Paramatma alone. And unless you see him, that is the process. That is the process that he has established, that we have to make an effort to see him. Then the knot is removed. Iha, now itself you can have this removal of this knot. Reassures Angirasa to Shuanaka, and he says Shuanaka Somya. He uses a beautiful word, Somya. Why he uses Somya? Saumya there because our Shuanaka is what? Mahashalaha. Shaunako havai Mahashalaha Angirasam Upasannaha Papracha. If you think about the very first verse, Mahashalaha, he used to perform big sacrifices, including Somayaga. And in the Somayaga in the ancient times, what were they doing? Somalata. They used to use the Soma, and then they used to drink that Soma juice. So you are eligible to drink that because you do lots of Somayaga. So you are Somya. And you are also Saumya Bhava, Sadhu. Saumya Bhava. You're very dispassionate to everything, but you're also affectionate to everything around you. Okay. So that is why he says Saumya. Yad yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam, so avidya grantim vikirati iha somya. So we need to have that sakshatkara. And unless we do that sakshatkara, there is no way of making any progress. And this is what all the scriptures tell us. This is foundational in Vedic philosophy. Yeah, that there is this antaryamin, bimbarupa, Rigveda, rupam rupam pratirupo babuvaha, tatasya rupam pratichakshanaya. Indro maya bihi purarupayete yuktahi yasya harayaha shatadasha. Katha Upanishad, same. Rupam rupam pratirupo bahishcha. Purusha Shukta. This is the route. There is no other route. People may want to do various routes, but ultimately this is what has to be done. Tam yevam vidwan amrutam yaha bhavati. Na anyaha pantaha ayanaya vidyate. Our same Gita has said, Priyohi jnanino atyartam aham. Such a mama priyaha. Look at that aham there. Yeah, we have to watch these words there. Priyohi jnanino atyartam. Okay, that jnani knows as what? Me as aham. Yeah, atyartam aham. What is that aham? Antaryamin. What is the jnana? Aparoksha jnana. Such a mama priyaha. I love that guy. Okay? The same Yajnavalkya in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says what? Atma va are drashtavyaha. See that Atman who is inside you, the Antaratma who is inside you. How do you do that? Shrotavyo, mantavyo, nitidyasitavyaha maitreyi. Prashna Upanishad, 5th question. Sa etasmat jivaganat paratparam purishayam purusham ikshate. This Purusha Jiva has to see something who is inside him. Purishayam ikshate. The same Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is Atmanyeva Atmanam Pashyet. See that fellow who is inside you. Otherwise, there is no hope for you. Okay? So I hope over the last 2 or 3 sessions, we've had a detailed understanding of how that Antaryamin is foundational for Vedic philosophy. Unless we have that Bimbarupa Shakshatkara, we cannot attain moksha, is the Vedic philosophy with regards to how we attain our salvation. Unfortunately, there is no shortcut to it. People may think that they have a shortcut. There is no shortcut. This is the process described for us in the Vedas, and Vedas are Apaurusheya, supreme authority of knowledge, and we follow what the Vedas tell us. So that Antaryamin is called Aham. We are not Aham. So we should never ever make that mistake and flout a delusionary approach to life. Yeah, we are nothing. It is the Antaryamin who is inside us, who is making sure that we act as per our swabhava, which is what was the discussion in last week's Gita Chintana. So we probably need to think about this more and more and bring this into action. Okay, so once he has said this particular beautiful verse, yeah, Purusha eva idam vishwam karma tapo brahma paramrutam yetad yo veda nihitam guhayam so avidya grantim vikirati iha somya iti Mundako Upanishadi dvitiye Mundake pratamaha khandaha. So he finishes off at that beautiful juncture. And then what Angirasa is going to be doing, which is going to be the second half. The second half of the Mundaka Upanishad is all talking about the greatness of Paramatma. It's just incredibly amazing verses there, and the philosophy there is amazing. And he takes up this Antaryamin in the very next section. Okay. Avihi sannihitam guhacharam nama mahatpadam atra etad arpitam ejat pranat nimishachayat. Yeah. Etad janata sadasad varenyam param vijnanad varishtam prajananam. Okay, so many beautiful languages that Angita is using us, and I think we are doing a good job of actually understanding what Angirasa is telling us over the last 10 months, and we will continue with our onward journey of the Dvitiya Mundake Dvitiya Khandaha from next week. Okay, so on that note, Krishna Pranamastu, and if we have any questions for discussions, let's do it now. Fantastic. So it looks like we have no questions. Somebody, you need to unmute. Okay, cool. So no questions today. Fantastic. So think about all this Antaryamin. So Sudarshan, do you want to recite Om and we close today's session?
Yeah. Oh.
Thank you, Sudarshan. Hare Krishna, everyone. Take care, and we'll catch up again next Sunday.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.